Today's another day, 19th of September. Temperature is down to 20 degrees. Last week it was 33, 34. Forgive me if I keep talking about the weather, but we people who live in the UK never stop talking about the weather. So I started pruning some branches, and then I had to stop because I wanted to show you what I'm doing. So I'm in the middle of this field. I call it a field, but they're all in pots. These are Bouverenenses that I've been growing since 1986, but they were purchased in 1980, and I brought them to Herons when I moved house. So we had more than 50 of these big trees. So look at them, they're over 6 foot tall, and they've got massive trunks. So if you look at each of these trees, they've got these beautiful trunks, and you must be wondering what I'm going to do with it. So I know it's been shaded by all these other trees, but let's start to work on it. So because it's autumn now, look at all the old needles that are falling off. So this time of the year, all the pines shed masses of needles. So many people ask me, is there a right time or a wrong time of pruning the tips of the trees? I believe that you can do it any time of the year. The ideal time is spring, but you can still do it in autumn. Because whatever you prune, provided the tree is growing strong, it will come back eventually. So again, with all these trees, I'm trying to find a nice trunk line. I don't know whether I can make this into a big bonsai, but whatever it is, we will probably be able to find something nice. So I'm looking from every angle to see which is the nicest side. This is nice as well. See, it's got a lovely bend there. The other side is not so nice. The bend is not so pronounced. Let me get these big junipers out of the way. So, if we look into this tree, I think this is quite interesting. So, the first decision is to decide how tall we want this tree. If it's going to be a big tree, it'll probably end up as a garden tree. I think this branch coming up is a bit strange. I usually reduce it gradually to see what happens. There's some quite interesting twists and bends at the top there. So this will probably end up as a garden tree. So if I want to show the twists and bends, let's get some of these big branches out of the way. So let me bring those big loppers. Stay there, focus on the tree. I'm going to get rid of this one first. I'll do it gradually. All that's coming out. So once I remove that, you begin to see the trunk line. And because this is directly in the front, I can make that into a gin. So let's get rid of this. And then we will keep that stub for a gin. Again, to remind those of you who are fairly new to bonsai, we make gins by making a partial cut, and once you've made a partial cut, you can then tear the branch back. I'll show it to you in a minute. So we've opened the tree up. It's got some nice twists and bends in here. Those of you who are a bit timid about pruning branches, just remember that if you do it in stages, bit by bit, you will eventually find the solution. So do not panic. And this can be pulled down like that. Sometimes when I look at all the expanse of trees I have, anyone would get worried that how can you ever get through all of them? But we will eventually get through all of them. Just a question of time. I'm now looking at this to see what I can do with that. I don't want to cut it off because it's quite an interesting branch. But I don't know whether to keep this branch or to keep this branch. There are too many there. One of them has to go. Has to go. Ooh, I don't know whether it's the top one or the bottom one. Ooh. Difficult choice. If we keep it like this, it can form a pad up there.
Yeah.
So that's possible, a pad like that. These two are conflicting, so that's troublesome. Very troubling. Let me take some of those back branches out. Every time I come across puzzling trees like this, my mind works overtime because I keep trying to figure out what should I cut, what can I leave. In fact, I have two leaders here. This one or that one. Both are interesting. Very interesting. So, the back one looks equally nice. This is a bit straight. So, let me bite the bullet again. Let me bring my little chainsaw. You get worried when I start bringing out the chainsaw. So I'm going to bite the bullet, as they say. I'm going to remove this. Very drastic decision. There you go. Look, I've opened the tree out. Look at that. I've still got a very nice tree line. But that was hell of a difficult decision. Look at all that. Look at all that I cut off. Frightening. Just to get the line. And now there's a lot of congestion here. And I can see straight away that a lot of this debris, see, this can form a nice crown there. While I'm playing around, I'm just thinking, what shall I cut next? I think I can see something already there. And I'm going to cut maybe that one there. Get rid of that. So we've got that nice curvy line. We've got to now decide what to do with these bits. out of choice. I think if I cut this branch, I will be leaving a big gap. I think I will have to probably take the bottom one off. This one, too close.
There's a back branch there as well, which is good.
Yeah. So,
might be the battery.
I change the battery. We're beginning to see the daylight. These will all become gins. So we can refine that. So you can see the shape emerging in front of your very eyes. You must be wondering, how can we take decisions like this? Don't worry, don't get disappointed or worried. This sort of skill comes with time. The more you do, the more you will get the confidence to do it. Not that difficult. So there's still a bit of congestion here. So I think I will take this off. See how much we've taken off. I think this is half the tree now taken off. You must be wondering, do we wire this tree or not? But what I'm going to do, I'm going to use wires to tie the tree down to the rim of the pot. I'm taking the tips out so that it buds back further into the trunk, further into the tree. Remember, what I'm showing you is only my way of doing it. There's so many different ways of doing it. I'm sure other people will do it in their own way. I'm always conscious that you can't always be right. There are other ways of doing it which are equally acceptable, equally successful. But it works for me, and that's what counts. Anything going upwards, I take off. You see that beautiful trunk line I've discovered now from this. So I believe that virtually every potential tree has something going for it. There is no such thing as an impossible tree. I know that some are difficult, but you can always do something with it. So if you follow me around, I'm just taking off anything that is dead, and I'm just tipping the shoots. You see how, see, all this has grown in this year. 12 inches of it has grown this year, including the cones. So just taking the tips back will encourage the thing to bud further back. Now this one's such a lot, I take it from the junction there, and then I reduce these ones. So the strongest shoot I always take out, like that one again. If that is the strongest shoot, I take the strongest shoot out. So like that, I take the strongest shoot out from there and take the side shoots back a little bit. So that's the general principle. It's so vigorous, this tree, that it's bound to produce more side shoots. So what I've now done is create the structure for the tree. Now that we've got the structure, we can build on that, and in time it'll become a nice garden tree with a beautiful trunk line like that. Look at it, we found the trunk line just by pruning. So if you look at the debris, I think we've taken about 70% off easily. Look at these branches, all this has been taken off, all this has been taken off. From just one tree. And the trunk, look at it, that must be at least 5-6 inches across, maybe more. So this is the front view from here, and that is one tree done. So we can move on to another one. Let's look at another one. Okay, let's go to another one which is a bit more difficult. This is not such a large one, but it's large enough, so chest high. And pulling it out, look at the roots standing on the soil. The roots have gone miles into the ground. Look at all that root. Look at all that root. This is how they get strong. Many people say that, you know, you have to plant it in the ground, but if you stand it on the soil, once the roots go into the ground, it's like planting it in the ground. So, no big deal. Okay, let's look at this one. This is a very tricky one. Not that simple. Let's take it to another more open area so that we can get a better view of the camera. With the camera, I mean. So, another bushy tree, and straight away I can see that the trunk is very, very straight. Very straight. What can you do with a fellow like that? So we turn around and see where we can find an interesting line. You see those low branches are there to thicken the base of the tree. Once that has been thick enough for our needs, we will probably think of cutting it off. Let's not cut it off completely, let me cut a bit off. Reduce the length a bit. Reduce this one a bit. Reduce this one a bit. I bet people who are viewing this video must be saying, oh, now Peter Chan's got a problem, and then what's he going to do with this difficult tree? But we will find a solution, I promise you. So let us, by method of elimination, see what we can get out of this tree. What we can get out of it. You know, even these branches shouldn't be discounted. If you wanted to just do something with this, you could even cut it off there and do something, but I wouldn't be that drastic. It is a possibility, but the thing is to show you that you need to keep an open mind. Never have a closed mind. If you have an open mind, anything is possible. So while I'm looking at the tree, I'm just trying to explore to see what can be done. Pines seldom break back from that old trunk. Sometimes they do, but not often. It's one of those trees I will probably have to take into the workshop and fiddle around and see what we can do with this one. Okay, I think this is more suitable for taking into workshop. I stopped this for a while, but I will continue doing this. So let me stop this and then go on to another big. We've come across two very interesting bourbonenses. This one is not that big, it's chest high or chin high, but very interesting base. And this one also, that almost impossible tree, is tall, but working in the field is not like working in the workshop or the studio where I have a white background. So I'm going to take both of these back in there and I will analyze it more carefully. Here we are, back in our workshop. So with the white background, it's much easier to look at the tree, analyze the tree, and take our time. In the field, it's usually so congested and the background is not clear, very hard to see clearly what one is trying to analyze and what one is trying to achieve. So in this position, let me see what the different options are. I don't want to cut too many things prematurely. I've already cut some V-shaped branches from there, kept that one, kept this one so far. But this is extremely worrying because it's too straight, too straight. I always think that the things that we grow in the field is also like collecting from the wild because they are so rough and ready that they have so many different characteristics which make them interesting, but they still have to be solved as a problem. So when I look at this tree, I turn it around and look at it from every possible angle, seeing where I can find an interesting line. This, as I said, is the worrying part, but where I can find a deviation, a slight tilt in the angle, that will make it interesting. So I brought these blocks out and let me just prop them up to see what happens. I may need the longer turntable. So if I prop it up, so what I want to do is to give it some angle. That helps. I can see that this bit is quite interesting, veering away there. That is interesting. So although I'm not saying anything, I'm still thinking, but I better think aloud and tell you what my thoughts are. This is also interesting, but this part is a bit straight. These bits being so low, this one is rather ungainly. This is interesting, but again, goes out like a catapult from here. That makes it less interesting. That is interesting there. This I think we can discount. So let us cut it off with a lopper. May make a little chin from it later on. So bye-bye. That. This is also not very interesting. Let's get rid of that. Back branch. Shorten it. So I'm still homing on that. That is very straight. Let me think before I cut it off. See, that is very ungainly there. Not very interesting. Not very interesting. Let's reduce it a little bit in case I change my mind. So getting rid of those lower branches has eliminated some distraction. Those branches were distracting the eye. Usually straight branches like that, you could carve into it. If you hollow it out, you can make it thin and then try and bend it. You can also cut a V and try and bend it that way. I won't show you how to do it yet because I don't want to do it unless I absolutely have to. I don't want to do it just to prove a point. Sometimes people do it just to show off and they want to prove a point. Let's see what we can do without doing it. It's certainly a puzzle if ever there was one. The crown has a lot of potential, but the lower parts have not a great deal going for it. I think just by wiring the top, it could make the tree more interesting. I've gone and split it because protuberances are very brittle. It's broken away from there. Well, trees like this can only be literati if it's tall and lanky. Let's get rid of more. It's looking a bit better now. Let's get rid of that. there's too much distraction going on. I think all these have to go. See, we've got a very interesting line there. So let's do some wiring. We're going to wire it and bring it down. We're going to bring it down something like that. So we're not going to waste too much video time showing you the wiring, but we will wire. So we wire all these branches. So we put it on the low turntable. So we've put two pieces of wire on. I put a 4mm wire from here to there, and then I put 3mm wire from here to there. Now it is like free play, you know. That means you just do what you feel is right, and let's hope for the best. After all, literati is that sort of style where you don't plan anything. It is just really like brushstroke painting. You just move the brush and hope for the best. You keep playing with the branch till it satisfies you. Already looking something. I've got to remember that Bouverensis pines can be brittle. So having said that, if you hear it crack or snap, you think something's happened. It will have happened. As you work with more species, you will realize which species are brittle, which are more pliable, and you get to know the tree. A lot of tedious wiring to do. So that's going to come down like so. So I'm trying to form a crown there. Already looking something. Now let's wire these and let's see what happens. I've always got to remind myself that with literati, the principle of less is more is paramount. Never get tempted to do too much. So you see the triangular shape I've created, and by having that triangular shape, I've taken the distraction of that very straight trunk, and it's beginning to look like a viable tree. So let me do a little more. I haven't decided what to do with these, whether to do little gins or not. I might well do, but I will keep the option. I won't remove it straight away. And then we've got this, which is a very nice problem to have. What do I do with this one? Is that going to be a distraction, I ask myself? Okay, let me wire it and see what happens. I'm going to play with this branch. I'm just being creative in a free way. I'm just letting the free spirit take over without any preconceptions, without any idea as to what turns out. It's a very hard concept to try and communicate because, you know, when you play with free form, you literally have to let your entire creative spirit go crazy. I think that little low branch there is going to take away the attention from that very straight trunk. So I'm going to persevere and see what I can make from that. I'll put another piece of wire. I'm really enjoying this because this was a really difficult tree. Very, very difficult tree. I think we need to keep looking back on the original to see how we started the thing off. Again, with a tree like this, if we gave it to someone or give it to 10 people, we get 10 different solutions. That's the beauty of it. No one is right, no one is wrong. Everyone is different. See, what I've done is to repeat this line over here, and by repetition it is making it sing, as it were. It's like a chorus, you know. This is a chorus of that. So I fill that space. So by filling that space, I've taken the distraction away from the straight trunk. That's what I feel. And then once these are wired into pads, it should look something. So I think I've got the basic structure now. All I now need to do is take time to wire each of these little branches, and then we will see how this pans out. What I will do with that back branch there, I haven't decided yet. I will keep it till I've done all the other wiring, all the other bits of wiring, and then see how it goes. But meanwhile, what I will do is to make the wiring a bit simpler, is to take the tips out so it's not so congested. So all these long tips I'm going to take back, and this will encourage bud back. So we've got quite far with this tree now. So what was almost an impossible tree has turned out like this. And that back branch, I might use it as gin. Let's see what happens. So there's a little more wiring to do, fine wiring. And we will show you when we've done that, because that wiring is going to take at least about 2-3 hours, maybe more. But I can't have 2 or 3 hours of video time showing me wiring every single little twig. So this is as far as I've gone, and this is what we call creating the structure. Once you've created the structure, the rest is detail. So there you go. I will stop this there. Now I will look at another problem tree. Okay, so we'll stop this. So I have here another large Bouverensis pine, or the dwarf Scots pine, and they are all puzzles. It is literally raw material. Although we have planted it in the field for the last 30 or more years, they have matured and become quite interesting. Look at this natural gin. I just noticed that a dead branch here, in nature you get branches dying and you get this natural gin occurring. It's not man-made. So it just shows you what we try to do in bonsai is really something absolutely natural. Okay, so let me just get rid of these twigs which are obviously dead. Now again, this is an extremely interesting puzzle. So what do? I turn the tree round and round and see what is the potential, where can I find a nice design, where can I find a nice line. It's got basically 2 trunks, this and that, and a long side branch. Can become a twin trunk tree, but I will certainly try and keep this in. But I need to find an interesting line. And where can I find an interesting line? Let's turn it around to see. Remember to keep all your options open. Never close your options. Once you close your options, then the design process becomes more difficult. So can I see anything from this side? Trunk is powerful. Let me see what I can get by changing the angle. That's interesting. If I turn that, this can become like a triple trunk. I can see straight away that this thick branch here is very straight, going out that way. I have more or less decided that this is the nicest looking front. the trunks are more visible from this side. If I turn it around the other way, the trunks don't look so good. See, it's very plain again from this side. Although everything is possible. There's always a temptation to not cut, that means leave as much as possible. But at some point we have to make some cuts. It's too spreading, too widely spreading. And these very straight branches are not so interesting. Although having said that, anything is possible. Even this side could be nice. I could bring these branches low like this on itself. Many possibilities. This is where it pays sometimes to take your time to think. I'll just do a little bit of reduction to see what happens. It does remind you of these mighty, great big pines that you see growing in nature, growing in the wild. Although I said this wasn't a possible front, the more I look at it, the more I think that there could be a case for making that the front. Let's look at it again from this side. There may be too many branches poking up from this side. I think this is interesting. This is even more of a challenge than the previous tree. Very difficult. Very, very difficult. I think I've got to bite the bullet. Meaning, I have a tall tree, but there are distractions at the back. And by distraction I mean these branches here. I'm going to take this off. Okay. I think simply by wiring the tree and creating interesting pads, it could look quite nice. That pad, bring this pad down like that. Bring this pad down back on that side. A wide spreading tree. The trouble is it hasn't got short branches. You see the effect I'm trying to get, like so. I think I will take another drastic decision because these big branches at the back are distracting me too much. The rings are very close. Now it's cut off now, we have to live with that. I don't think I've spoiled the tree too much. It's going to be a wide spreading tree. And I think simply by wiring them into pads, it's going to look quite elegant. It's one of those trees that you can't reduce the height too much. If I cut it off there and use this, you see there's no taper. You see that's too abrupt over there. So I have to use the whole height. So I will just proceed to do lots of wiring, wire them into pads, and then we'll arrange the pads and see what happens. So these are relatively long projects. But the tree is looking very pleasant. The lines are quite nice. So let's see what happens.